go ahead and call the meeting to order. The first item for our business today will be to adopt the agenda as presented in your packets. If anybody would like to make a motion to adopt the agenda, and then when we have a second, please just state your name and we'll take it from there. So is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I would move. We should probably held our hand up.
Okay.
Who was that? Go for it.
This is Donna Douglas, so moved for the approval of the agenda.
Thank you, Donna. We have a motion by Donna. Is there a second?
I will second.
A second by Shannon. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please. Aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign? Don't hear any? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 3, public comment is suspended through the COVID meetings. Item number 4 will be the minutes of the June 16th Board of Directors meeting. That information is also in your packet. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented?
I would like to propose that we accept the minutes as presented.
We have a motion by Shannon. Is there a second?
Second.
And who was
Was
that?
that to Donna?
Hi, to Donna.
Hi, to Donna. Thank you.
Hi.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Can we find out who just came on with the phone number 3639?
Are we muted?
Yeah. Whoever you are, you're muted.
That looks like Shelby. This is Donna Douglas. But
Shelby.
list,
Okay.
it looks like Shelby.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
That-
Next on the agenda will be our unfinished business, the proposal mural for Maya Angelou Northeast Branch. Who would that be?
Lamont, I don't think is on the call yet. To Donna, would you like to say anything?
If you don't mind, would you like to give an update, Ms. Cynthia?
Okay. You do have a report in your board packets. The item did go to the design council. To Donna was on the call. Lamont, Councilmember Johnson were there in person. The council met with the artist. There were a series of recommendations that were made for modifications to the concept as you had previously received it. And so that work went back to the artist, and the work I think that's Lamont who's just come on the line. If so, Lamont, would you like to say anything else about the status of the mural proposal?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure what all you touched upon. I just came in on the back end.
Okay, just basically that design council had made the recommendations in the packet and that we were waiting for an updated concept.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've been talking to Kyle, who's been speaking with Eric on again, off again this week. So they are in the process of incorporating the recommendations of the design council. And so the plan is to have a pretty much, I want to say completed, but definitely a project that is worth for presenting to the board at the August meeting. So everything is continuing to be in the works on that end. And that's pretty much where I'm at. I think you pretty much hit everything else.
Okay. And then just as a clarification and noted in your packet, because acceptance of public art would impact the budget of another unit of a municipal government, you are not the final authority on this. The final authority is actually the city council, but they would be looking for your recommendation.
Very, very good. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Lamont and Tadana. We'll go on. The next item on our agenda is new business. Item A is the City Budget Office presentation for the city's 2020 through 2022 proposed budget.
So I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Goldtree, who is our city budget officer. And I don't know how many times you've given this presentation, Elizabeth. I know she shared with the park board. City manager made his proposals to the city council this morning, and I asked Elizabeth to come online and just share those with you. So I think, Greg, if you share the screen, she'll be ready to go.
All right, Cindy, do you want me to show it from my computer?
I think he was ready to do that.
Or does he have the presentation?
Actually.
Okay, perfect.
But,
I can do it.
But Greg, Sean has it. If you'd like to share a screen with Sean.
Okay, can you see it now, the presentation?
Almost.
Let's see. Let me go back and make sure I clicked the right button. So I clicked share.
Yeah, there we got it.
There we go. Okay, perfect. It's always kind of touch and go, isn't it? All right. Super. Well, thanks for the introduction. Today is the day that the budget was presented to the city council. So it was posted online on Friday. So the budget and CIP are available, available at wichita.gov for your review. So your presentation is actually a little bit different than the park board presentation last week since the budget has been presented. So that's excellent timing. Let's see, how do I advance to the next slide? Okay, F5. Okay, did I advance the presentation or?
You did not.
Okay, so okay, so I think that you must be controlling it on your end. So can you move to the next slide? Thank you. Okay, sorry, fancy footwork. We'll get this figured out. So a brief outline for the presentation today. I'm going to introduce you to some concepts in our operating environment that you might already be familiar with, but connect what's been going on with the COVID pandemic back to the City of Wichita budget. Just provide a quick overview of the budget framework. So that's the process that we use to build the budget. And then we'll talk about what's in the budget. It's the operating budget in the capital improvement program. Next. So obviously the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted finances. So both on the revenue side of the City of Wichita operating budget, and it also, I mean, you all are very well aware of how the extent that it's impacted our operations. And then another thing that we have to keep in mind is we still are living in a situation with a tremendous amount of economic uncertainty. And though we've balanced the budget for next year, at this point, it's really hard to say what's going to happen in the near future. So we've done our best, but we're going to continue to monitor revenue and expenditures regularly. Next. And I apologize, there's a typo. The last column should be 2022 projected. This was the estimates that we provided to the City Council for the May 26th retreat. So just a frame of reference, it's about the deficit that we were looking at initially was about the same size as the library budget. So it was, I think it's good to have a frame of reference. The general fund budget's about $250 million. So we were looking, 5 to 7% deficits, which is difficult. As you'll see, a lot of our budget is for salaries and benefits and for core activities. Next. So these are some of the things that led to the deficit. We're projecting pretty substantial decrease in sales tax. That's one where there's only a 2-month lag between when purchases occur and when we receive the revenue from the state of Kansas. Interest earnings, interest rates are basically at 0 right now, so that impacts our investment pool. Gas tax, even generally when fuel prices are low, it induces driving, but during a shutdown like we've experienced, and particularly with school being closed, school induces a lot of driving. We're projecting a pretty significant decline there. And then also in fines and penalties, a little bit of that is a library, but most of that's municipal court. I would have never imagined that court would have ever been closed, and for that period of time, it's unprecedented. Next slide, please. So thankfully, you know, I reached out to my peers a lot this year. You know, what are you doing? What are you working on? I mean, it's just such an unusual time. And thankfully in August of 2016, we started working on a zero-based budgeting framework and went through, I'm sure you all are familiar with the materials for the library, identified core functions for every department, came up with new mission statements and the like. And that was really a good place to start, because I don't think that we could have done all of that work and put the budget together. So it was good that we had the framework in place from when we had the luxury of a little more time. We engaged with departments on concepts to balance the budget, and the library provided some, I don't want to call them good, I would say feasible options. We also engaged with residents through a social media town hall and budget simulator. And the city council was very involved throughout this process. We had our first retreat on April 7th. So if I remember correctly, the school announcement was on March 13th. And to me, that was really the start, the realization that this was a big change. So we turned that around in 3 weeks, and then we had another retreat. We had 2 more retreats after. So next slide. So those are the dates of the retreat. So the one on May 26th was significant because we presented 90 options to the city council to balance the budget. So, please. So this is the mission statement that came out of that process that started in August of 2016. We have it printed in the budget. But and the idea is that everything ties back to this. So to keep Wichita safe, grow our economy, build and maintain dependable infrastructure, and provide conditions for living well. And I'm just so grateful we went through that process a number of years ago. Next slide, please. So at the retreat on May 26th, those 90 options were presented. We grouped them into 4 tiers. So tier 0, we actually had a tier 0 and then a 1, 2, 3. The tier 0 was a lot of things that we were expecting to happen regardless of the action that was direction from the city council. Things like fuel prices being lower, less electricity usage when buildings were vacant, and so forth. But as we moved through the tiers, the decision making became more difficult. So they identified some options during that process to take out to residents for resident engagement. So next slide. So, I went to the district advisory board meetings in early June and presented some of those concepts. We also used the budget simulator again this year. It was a little different than last year. This year, when people started their budgets, they had a deficit and their only option was to cut. There were new options for increasing budgets. And then we also had a social media town hall. Next, please. So the budget simulator was online for 3 weeks. We had much higher participation in 2019. I think part of that is because the issue at hand is much more salient. And also, last year was our first time and we had 40 services listed, and this year we condensed it down to 16. I think that made it a lot easier for people. So of the 16 services, the 3 that rose to the top are fire and medical response, persons crime investigation, and pavement maintenance. Those three were reduced the least. And library is interesting. Library was reduced less in 2020 than in 2019, which is interesting because last year there was an option to increase. Well, or like when I, and this memo hasn't been distributed yet. When it is, it's shareable, but when I rank things from top to bottom, like their increase, decrease, library was rated, you know, it was more, its outcome on the simulator is more favorable than 2019, which is interesting since it's just, it's an interesting situation. There was a lot of feedback. There were a lot of interesting comments based on when the simulator was launched and some different preferences for government services compared to what we saw a year ago. So we're going to be doing some in-depth analysis of all of that. There were 31 budgets completed and people had 6 different places where they could type in comments. So we have a lot of data to analyze. So I just want to make sure that we analyze the data rather than just remembering the most interesting comments. So we'll be doing that this fall. So next. And then we had our social media town hall. It was a little different this year, and that I don't know if any of you all had the chance to participate, but in the past, we've really just done, we've had pictures and videos and we've asked for comments. This year, we used a new feature called polling, and so people could pick one of 2 things. So we had 6 topics that the city council identified at the retreat in May. And so we presented some either or options. And so for library, the either or is, do you support retaining library hours or do you support keeping materials purchases the same? So the materials purchases was something the library presented as a concept. The library hours, I think when I've talked to library staff, they said, you know, if you're going to cut our budget that much, I mean, that's all that's left. So it's not like these options weren't things that we were necessarily excited about. It's just when we're having to cut this much, these are the kind of things that we have to talk about. So the feedback that we got was consistent with what we've been modeling and considering, and that 68% of respondents were in support of retaining library hours, and only in less than a third picked keeping the new materials budget the same. And it was interesting. Twitter was our platform where we had the least responses, but Twitter was the most supportive of retaining hours. So that was interesting to get that feedback. Next one, please. So this is what's in the budget. So this is what we call the all funds budget. So it includes the water utilities and the special revenue funds and the like. It's not particularly relevant to the library, but our all funds budget, everything together, is about $630 million. So next, please. And then on the general fund side, this is where the library budget is, of course. I think it's always important to point out to people that property tax is our biggest revenue source, but that franchise fees is our second biggest. And it's always a little surprising to people. Those are the fees that we collect through utility bills, and we're probably going to have some weakness there this year as businesses were closed and there was less utility consumption. So, but all of these are economically sensitive. They just have different timing. So for the 2021 budget, we're actually going to experience strong growth in property tax due to strong real estate sales in 2019. So that is definitely a silver lining this year amongst nearly every other revenue source being quite a challenge. Next, please. This is the expenditure side of the budget. We slice it 2 different ways. The first on the left is we slice it by department to show you, to show you where we spend, and about 75% of our budget is between police, fire, and public works. And that's just the public works side, the general fund part of public works. And then you look at the other side, the one on the right is that 3/4 of our budget is salaries and benefits. So it really shows how difficult, I think, people say travel less, and it's like, well, obviously we're traveling less because we can't, or they're like, buy less of this or buy less of that, but it's really so much of our budget is in people. And I know that's also true of the library. So it's very difficult. The first thing that we did because of this is that we're in a hiring freeze right now, except for commission positions. So police and fire recruit classes, but generally we're in a hiring freeze, and it's obvious why that is the approach that we've taken based on how much salaries and benefits is of our budget. Next slide, please. So some highlights from the budget. It requires no mill levy increase. That's been standard. The general fund is balanced in 2021, but like I said, we're going to continue to monitor economic conditions. And then public safety is prioritized. Last year, the police staffing study phase 2 was included in the budget, and it's really technical, but we've itemized all of those positions in this year's budget. Next slide. So some of the things we've been doing that are included in this budget, like I said, we've had a hiring freeze, tree removal. That was a concept from the park department. We went out for resident engagement, and so we'll be prioritizing removal over planting. Arts and cultural services funding is reduced for this budget, but then remains flat through the rest of the planning period, which the grant committee was really relieved by. I thought I was delivering terrible news, and they were relieved. So I guess that tells you something about this year. And then Century 2 operations will be privatized starting next year. Next. This is a big change, is that animal shelter is budgeted for internal use only. That's something we've been researching best practices in other Kansas communities. So that's something that's, they're in the research and development phase right now. Thankfully, we've been able to budget savings from lower fuel costs and energy efficiency. Just recently, Public Works, they're obviously in contact with Evergy, and we have a contract in place for the Ponderosa Wind Farm. So we'll be saving about $300,000 a year from that. So that's definitely good news. And then some of the library concepts that were from library staff are included in the budget. So next. So as I said, the mill levy is flat, so that's the bottom line, the 32.720. But one thing that we've done this year, which I'm sure you're all aware of, is we're shifting a half mil from the debt service fund to the general fund to make up for some of the revenue loss in things like sales tax and interest earnings. Next, please. So that brings us to the CIP. CIP is, about $2 billion over a 10-year period. A very large part of it is related to utilities, particularly the sewer bionutrient removal project is what's a big part of that $490 million in sewer. Next, please. So the CIP is just as impacted by the COVID-19 financial environment as the general fund. There is a fund for local sales tax. So half of the local sales tax that we receive from the county goes to this construction fund and half goes to the general fund. So we're expecting a decrease and then low growth. Transient guest tax also funds projects in the CIP. And I think they're projecting, I know for at least one quarter, a 75% decrease in that revenue. It's tied directly to hotel rooms. And then property tax, there'll probably be a higher level of delinquencies in the debt service fund due to underlying economic conditions. And this is what you're all probably most interested in, is the proposed CIP defers 18 projects totaling $28.2 million. And this deferral allows, because of this deferral, it allows for less drastic reductions to be required in the general fund. And most of those deferrals are for 1 to 3 years. And the library projects that have not been initiated yet are on that deferral list. I think that Evergreen is on the same time frame that it used to be, but the other projects aren't. So that's something that staff met early on in the project in April. We went through the list and then we presented it to the city council. So it's not something we're excited about, but it's something that really was necessary to balance the budget. So, and that is how we were able to reduce the debt service mill levy for 21 and 22. And then right now we have it modeled that half mil goes back to the debt service fund in 23. So, but of course, you know, we'll be monitoring economic conditions. Next, please. So the CIP process, we're very much guided by the Community Investments Plan, which is sometimes commonly called the comp plan. There's a metric in there, and we score all of our projects and tie them back, and library staff does a fantastic job of filling out their forms. So it's also important for the CIP to be financially sustainable based on debt metrics. And we also have been focused on leveraging opportunities. So for example, the North Junction project, that's that highway project that we're partnering with KDOT and Sedgwick County. Like, that is one that we couldn't defer because we're already under contract, we're leveraging and so forth. And even the tennis center, which that was back on the agenda today, I think people are kind of confused. Why is the tennis center moving forward? But they have $430,000 or $403,000 in outside funding. So those are some of the decisions that we've had to make. Next, please. So this is just a quick slide. I know some of you are at home, but some of you are at the library. But we've been working on street maintenance and continuing to increase that. It's been a top priority. So street maintenance stays the same in the CIP. The street projects that we moved out are more of the expansion type projects. Next, please. Quickly, there's a lot of public safety in the CIP. It's mostly for replacing police and fire stations, and then we replace police apparatus out of the CIP because it's so, it's capitalizable. It's an expensive purchase. Next. We have funding for bike ped projects, funding for public art, which you all just were talking about, and then implementation of the Downtown Streets Master Plan. Next. And this is probably not what you came for today, but this is something that's very important that guides the process. So the goal here is to have the black line, the one that moves below the blue line, which is the straight one, for our benchmark for our debt levels. And in the CIP, we're able to achieve that. Next. So just overall, taking a step back, the whole process, the operating and capital budgets, we've made a lot of structural adjustments this year that are a step toward financial sustainability, excuse me. We do have operating budget deficits that are modeled beginning in 22. And like I keep saying, we're dealing with a lot of economic uncertainty at this time. And I really can't overemphasize this importance of the decision-making framework, and just the importance. I'm sure you've seen the documents, all of the different activities that the library is involved in. And it could be, I think that some of the activities that we've done the world is changing a lot. So it might be a good time to revisit those again next fall. But it's been so vital and so critical that we had all of that good work done ahead of time. Next. So our calendar, the budget was presented today, and they set the maximum amount of taxes levied and authorize the publication of notice. So those are all things that are required by state statute. The second public hearing will be on August 4th. That is really the best opportunity for residents to provide feedback on the budget. And then the final public hearing and adoption of the budget will be on August 11th in accordance with state statute. So I believe that is my last slide. It is. So if you all have any questions or if you think of something later, that also can happen. But as I said, everything's posted online.
Okay, this is Kevin Porter. Elizabeth, thank you very much for the presentation. Is there any board member that has a question for Elizabeth at this time?
While we're checking on that, Elizabeth, I just want to clarify, you talked about Evergreen moving forward, but for the board, Linwood is also moving forward. And
Okay.
to do with the project technically hasn't been initiated, but it's because it's a lease and not a project. We're doing that adjustment. Everything else is now into 2023 or 2024.
Yeah, good point. Sorry, but the other, I think it's the deferred ones, I believe, are Rockwell, Alford, Angelou.
And the Westlink expansion.
And the Westlink expansion, right. So they're still there. So we only had, and then on the flip side, I think we only added 4 new projects in the whole CIP this year. So I guess it's good that your timing was what it was by having those projects put in last year. So.
Yeah, you know, all the hard work was done last year when we had the multiple meetings with the 2 groups and the city council and the manager and got all that ironed out. And we certainly understand that these projects need to be pushed back a little bit. We want to be part of the solution and not the problem. And we understand that the CIP is a very delicate thing and it's just got to be flexible. So we get that.
Yeah, so.
I don't see any questions from any of the board members. Elizabeth, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me. Have a nice afternoon.
You too. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we're back in regular business here. The next item would be the finance report and bills. Of course, none of the committees have met. So I will go ahead and let you know that I took a pretty detailed look at the July finance report and did not see anything out of the ordinary. Unless there is a question from any board member regarding any of the financials, I would make a motion that we approve the financials for June 2020 as presented. This is not a committee motion, so we do need a second. Any questions, or does somebody want to second my motion?
And I think everybody's on mute. So if you're going to second, you'll need to unmute yourself.
There you go.
This is Lauren. I'll second.
Go ahead, Lauren.
I second.
Thank you, Lauren. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda would be the approval of bills exceeding $10,000, and we do have one of those items today. Cynthia, would you like to comment?
Sure. This is an annual renewal. It's our AtoZdatabases, which is one of our most heavily used databases. It's an invaluable resource for directory information, also to assist small businesses. You had some notes about the use in your agenda report, and the agreement was reviewed as to form. We will take advantage of the multi-year option, but annual invoicing, which is the best fit for us. So that would be an annual rate of $16,174.
Okay. To approve this, we would need a motion and a second. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion to adopt the negotiated annual rate at $16,174.
I would so move. Shannon?
Shannon.
We have a motion by Shannon. Is there a second?
Chuck,
This
here,
is Donna
second.
Douglas. Oh, okay.
We have a second by Chuck. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the item D, the semi-annual accounting of gift and memorial fund. Cynthia, would you like to mention?
The only thing I would like to mention on this, most of you have seen this before. We give this to you twice a year. If you go back on this report to page 4 and 5, you'll see in the middle of page 4 the accounting of the different funds. And then starting at the bottom of page 4, you actually see we are holding $652,000 currently in certificates of deposit. We've done that because the majority of these funds relate to the branch improvement fund. That's the Fund 160, or the technology fund. And these were things that we were doing related to branch expansion sorts of things. And so as you heard from Elizabeth, we'll have some delay in some of those. We're not yet far enough on Linwood or Evergreen to know how much we need. But those are all rolling, so they'll be available when we need them.
Very good. Any questions for Cynthia regarding gift and memorial fund? And we'll make a motion with.
And then, yeah, also for your information, a very abbreviated report of staff travel, which was actually for January and February, because we've not done any travel since then.
So at this time, we need a motion to accept items D and E with the accounting and gift memorial fund and the semi-annual report of the employee travel report. Jonathan, you want to make that motion?
Sure.
Yes.
We have a motion by Jonathan to accept. Is there a second?
This is Donna Douglas. I second.
Thank you, Donna. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Special committee reports. Since nobody met, is there anything, Lamont, I'll go to you first from Public Affairs. Is there anything you want to mention? Is he on?
Yeah, he is on, and I think he just unmuted.
Okay,
No, sir, not at this time.
thank you. Randy Johnston, if you're on, is there anything for facilities?
Yes, a couple items. The Linwood relocation project, we have the lease signed with Max Cole, and city's given us the go-ahead to work with LK Architecture on preparing a furniture, fixtures, and equipment budget, and that is underway. I think we're using an architect over there that's familiar with us because she was involved in the downtown library, so that's good. We're still shooting for first quarter occupancy 2021, so that's good. Evergreen, the architects on that, Schaefer, Johnson, Cox, and Fry, have been approved for the architectural contract. I think that one is going to be delayed. We were initially thinking we would move out of the library while construction was going on in September, but that may be moved back till late in the year or first part of 2021. Lastly, probably everybody has seen the Keeper of the Plains statues around town, the 10-foot ones that local artists have improvised. The organization Together Wichita is donating 13 more of those to be placed around the community. each council member, city council member gets to designate 2 placements. The 13th one, the mayor gets to place, and he is doing that with the Advanced Learning Library. So Cynthia, I am going to try and make that meeting tomorrow. Is that going to be at the library?
It is, Randy. We'll meet at the west entrance.
Okay, very good. That's my report.
Thank you, Randy. By the way, congratulations, and we appreciate all the hard work that you have done on our behalf over the last few months and working with the city to get all of this completed, particularly for the Linwood branch. And great work. Thank you very much. Next would be operations. Jonathan, is there anything to report?
You may want to. I'm sorry. Okay, again, sorry. 2 things to report. Our budget. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Our budget problems has been in layoffs in 2 positions. Since we are moving forward with Evergreen, we will, at some point in the future, we will review projects that have been on hold and transferring fees, yes.
So in case you couldn't hear, what Jonathan was reporting is that we will be working with the operations committee on some updates to the policy manual regarding our organization that has to do with a couple of layoffs that are included in the budget. I'll talk about those a little more in my report. And then reminding the board that as we go into that Evergreen adjustment with the Evergreen Center, the board will probably want to come back and revisit the conversation that you had previously about elimination of hold and transfer fees. And that will be a challenging conversation in light of the financial situation of the city. But that was something that did come out of the branch plan as an equity issue.
Very good. Thank you, Jonathan. Next on the agenda would be support organization reports with the Foundation, Friends of the Library, and Genealogical Society. I assume that
They're in the packet.
They are in the packet. Next would be the Director of Libraries report.
Just by way of service update, we continue in a limited service status. Every time we think we have a handle on it, something changes. And then we adjust again. So we are continuing our curbside operations probably indefinitely, given the increases in local COVID cases and looking forward to fall when they say that we'll maybe have a second spike. We were planning on starting some very limited in-person program opportunities. Starting this month, we pushed those out a little bit. We did have a partnership program that we planned with Sedgwick County Extension for some fall gardening. And yesterday we made the decision to have the Extension Office move that to an online program. So information will be going out about that. We have also had to defer room uses for outside organizations and internally, because we are still using all of our meeting rooms or most of our meeting rooms as quarantine holding areas for collections. We continue to hold things for 72 hours while we've been pending results from a study, a lab study on that. We hoped by now we would no longer be quarantining. Unfortunately, we got the second phase results yesterday, And some libraries, instead of eliminating quarantine for 3 days, are now quarantining for 4 days. So it's not exactly working the way we want it to go. We're waiting on clarifying information from the Institute of Museum and Library Services on that. Also, some of you may know, Dr. Mins spoke with the County Commission today about potentially a new order and kind of reverting back to more aggressive restrictions in some areas. So we continue to watch and adjust based on that. I do want to thank Lauren, who has agreed to change teams and to move over to the Planning and Facilities Committee this year. With Axel's leaving the board, we were pretty short-handed over there, and so she's going to be on and will be a great liaison for us as we do that work with the Linwood project. And then a couple of other things related to that, as Jonathan mentioned, as Elizabeth set up for you, but didn't go into detail. In addition to the $100,000 cut in the materials budget, the deferral of the capital projects, the biggest impacts in the budget for us are 2 restructurings that we did propose if they were needed, and they both have been incorporated into the city manager's budget. One is consolidation of 2 of our between those 2 divisions going through, and so we will be coordinating and consolidating those. And when we do that, we unfortunately need to do a layoff of one of our library managers. The second reorganization involves our outreach activities. We right now have 1 librarian who is dedicated to youth outreach, and we obviously haven't been able to do outreach for some time. We're not sure what the future of that looks like. Before we had the dedicated position, the outreach work that we did was done by other children's librarians, other folks on the staff, in addition to their other duties. And so we will be eliminating the dedicated position and reverting back to that other model, since we just don't know what the future looks like in terms of doing outreach. Both of those reorganizations will become effective on September 4th. And then the last thing I have for you is I have done additional work coordinating with the city manager, and I have informed him that my retirement date will be September 18th. So we are working on succession planning transitions now, and we'll continue to do that over the next couple of months. And that concludes my report.
Very good. Thank you, Cynthia. Does any board member have any questions for Cynthia regarding her report, or any questions regarding overall library operations, or any comments?
And I think maybe we muted everybody.
If you have any.
Shannon and Chuck, I think, have things.
There you go. Shannon?
Well, I just want to say, how in the world are we going to have a big party for Cindy in this time, and then follow that with, oh my gosh, yeah, I hate having a date, but I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
So there you go. That's all I had. How do we party? What do we do for Cynthia, for all she's done for this place?
Zoom, right?
We're going to have a party on Zoom.
Shannon, we'll figure something out.
Yay.
Thank you, Shannon. Chuck, have you got a question or comment?
Yeah, I don't want to take the rest of the board's time, but I didn't get logged in until after you'd started, and I missed the discussion on the proposed mural. I can talk to somebody afterwards. If I could talk to Cindy afterwards or something, it'd be fine.
Yeah, well, Chuck, I can just fill you in, and also then while Lamont's still on here. Basically, the project went to the design council. They had kind of several recommendations for refinement, different sorts of things. The artist is working on those with the staff from Real Men, Real Heroes, and we should have something to review again in August.
Okay, Thank you.
That's it. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll go to the next item on the agenda. That's announcements. Are there any announcements?
We hope that we'll be in person in August. We don't know. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Any announcements from any board member? Okay, hearing none. That takes us to adjournment. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Appreciate your time and consideration and participation. So have a great day, stay safe, and the world changes by the day.